Welcome to the Stress-Free Dentist Podcast. I'm Dr. Eric Block. If you've ever felt overwhelmed, burned out, or like your practice is running you instead of the other way around, you're in the right place. Each week, I sit down with leaders in dentistry to share the lessons they've learned from their successes, failures, strengths, and setbacks. And the goal is simple, to help you build a more efficient, productive, and less stressful career, and a better life outside of it. For more resources, books, and upcoming events, visit thestressfreedentist.com. Now let's get into today's episode. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode. And today I'm joined by Deren Flesher. Thanks so much for joining us, Deren.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And Deren, where are you zooming in from today?
I live just outside of Oklahoma City. It's a suburb called Edmond. It's like literally touches the north side of Oklahoma City. So, um, unfortunately, NBA playoffs are going on right now, and my Thunder are out of it. But it's been fun the last couple of years being a Thunder basketball fan. So that's our one major sport in the area, and it's been a fun last couple of years. So yeah, I'm just right outside of the city.
Oh, that's awesome. Is that where you grew up? And did you go to dental school there too?
Yeah, I was born in Kansas City, but lived there until I was basically starting grade school. So I've got family up in that area. We go to Chiefs games and stuff every year. And obviously that's been fun for the last five years or so as well. But yeah, I grew up in a small town, about 90 minutes south of Oklahoma City, pretty close to Texas, called Duncan. It's where a big oil and gas company was founded. But my family has nothing to do with oil and gas. My parents are both hospital nurses, and back in the 90s, it wasn't very common for a nurse anesthetist to work on their own, and that's what my dad is. But in Duncan, they had a standalone group of nurses, and he could partner there and saw the opportunity, and so we picked up from Kansas City area and moved to Duncan, and I grew up and went through high school there, and then went to Oklahoma State for undergrad, and then University of Oklahoma for dental school. So kind of Oklahoma through and through, other than the first few years.
Did you think of also going to nursing school, or how did you decide to go to dental school?
So I did think about nursing school, but not as a plan A. Um, I didn't have dentistry on the radar until really late in college. I thought I wanted to do medicine because I knew medicine, I knew hospital medicine. I was around it with my parents and shadowing and shadowed surgeons and all sorts of things and thought I wanted to do that. But I didn't really love the idea of call. My dad took a lot of call. He'd be gone for 48, 72 hours sometimes, delivering babies and doing all sorts of stuff with that. And so I witnessed that and didn't love that idea for me long term. And so I wasn't really thinking about or familiar with kind of non-hospital doctor type things until really late in school. And I started to shadow optometrists and dentists. And I actually ended every kind of shadowing opportunity by asking the question, if I was your son, would you advise that I do what you do? And most medical doctors said no. And this was kind of like back in Obamacare coming onto the scene and stuff. And they were kind of concerned and, confused and just, didn't love the future of medicine at that time. And I still think generally that's how most medical doctors would respond. And literally every dentist was like, yeah, I not only would I, but I do advise my kid to jump into dentistry. You get to make your own hours if you want to be entrepreneurial and own your own business. If you want to set the rules, like you can do all of that, or you can just be an employee for somebody else. Like you get to choose where on that spectrum you want to be. And so that really appealed to me, as somebody who considers themselves entrepreneurial. Like I wanted to be able to be in charge. I wanted to be able to set the hours and be involved in the marketing and everything that comes into business ownership. That's actually was a huge draw for me. I know that's not typical for a dentist. Like most dentists just want to be the clinician and let the other stuff hopefully fall into place. The Not that I mind the clinical, but that's actually my least favorite part of what I do. It's more the other stuff. So yeah, I mean, always thought medical, but didn't think dentistry until really late. And then to answer your question, I applied to dental school. It took 3 tries, 3 years, 10 schools twice, so 20 failures, if you will. And then the third time around, I said, well, if I'm going to go somewhere, it's probably going to be in state. Like they're not going to look favorably on an out-of-state person who's trying for the third time. So I only applied to OU. But I also simultaneously applied to nursing school because I knew like I got to do something. I can't just keep doing victory laps in Stillwater and managing a liquor store and a convenience store and doing this forever. So I enjoyed that, but like, I had to make a decision to move on professionally. And so, um, I got into nursing school at the same time I got into dental school that third try. And obviously plan A was dental school. So I proceeded with that, but I very easily could have been a nurse and was considering that.
Oh man, I love the question that you asked all those, professionals, and
Yeah.
it's amazing how many doctors said, or PCPs or physicians said no. I
Yeah.
think personally, if I was asked that question right now, I would say yes because, I'm 50. I went through a tremendous amount of burnout halfway through my career, and if I was asked then, I would have said no way, Jose. But now
Mhm.
I've like gotten more, you know, uh, my clinical skills are there. I'm a better leader. I'm more confident in myself, and I love the fact that I own a business. So
Yep.
to me, I know the tuition is crazy, but I would say yes to if my kids asked.
Yeah, same. Yeah, I'm 10 plus years into it now. Graduated in 2013, so I guess 13 years into it now. Um, Probably stronger than ever. Feel pretty strongly that like it still offers all those things that I was told it did. There's obviously a lot of consolidation and stuff with corporate and DSOs and all that, but I think that there will always be a place for a well-run local business who just like, is in the community, who understands what people around there want and need and has a pulse on marketing and hiring and firing. Like if you're just plugged in, there's no machine that's gonna beat you, I think. I think the local dentist who really has a pulse on everything that they should be keeping track of and running themselves is going to do better than any corporate could do.
Yeah, and actually, I want to get to that in a bit. The words you said, plugged in and having a pulse on the practice. Um, but just quickly, after dental school, what was life like? Did you open up your own practice? Did you associate for a while? What happened there?
Yeah, I associated for a couple years through a couple different places. The first place I went to was a general dentistry place. It was about as close to my house as it could be, which I prioritized at the time, not knowing what mattered, not knowing, that patient flow and procedure mix and all that were going to be bigger than where I was driving to every day. I just prioritized like, is it around the corner? Is it easy to get to? And so I kind of honestly forced my way into a situation that I shouldn't have been in. It was at best, two doctor office, and I was the third doctor. It was a small local DSO that was about 35 offices at the time. And in the fall of my first 6 months of working there, so like 3 or 4 months into me working there, they made a company announcement that they'd sold to Heartland. Um, and so I didn't know who Heartland was or what it was or what that was going to look like for me. But what I did know was that I was more often than not cashing in on my minimum, my like daily guarantee, which now as an owner, and you probably know this as well as I do, like if that's where somebody's living, then either or both sides of that arrangement should probably be looking for some other opportunity. Guarantees should never really come into play long term. I get it from like a 30, 60-day kind of situation where you're waiting on collections or whatever to kick in, but like realistically, that shouldn't be a factor. And so I kind of saw the writing on the wall, regardless of who Heartland was or what it was going to be for me. Like I just knew it wasn't the office I should be in. And so I moved on to a place called um, Dentures and Dental Services, which was all the way across town on the south side of Oklahoma City. Um, and they've actually also been since bought by Affordable Dentures. So kind of smallish regional DSOs that got bought by big DSOs is kind of both of my associate stories. Um, but it was great experience, great money as an associate, made multi six figures there. But I was literally just pulling teeth and doing dentures. I did an occasional crown, an occasional filling. I did literally one set of veneers in the 18 to 20 months I was there. It was almost exclusively extractions, like thousands of extractions, couple thousand arches of dentures over that 18 months. Like that's all I was doing. And they were starting to get into over dentures and eventually all on X stuff, like as I was leaving, kind of company wide. But like really all I was doing was pulling teeth and putting dentures in, immediate dentures. And like I said, it was great money and it was great experience, but I felt I was getting pretty limited pretty quickly as far as like hand skills. And again, kind of saw the writing on the wall, like if I want, if I don't want to just do this forever, I need to move on. I need to go back to general dentistry. And now that I've gotten 2+ years under my belt of how to do things, how not to do things, management styles and all that kind of stuff, um, went and opened my own office from scratch, did a scratch startup in 2015. Um, and still have that today. So built that from the ground up, literally, sand in a strip center, in a box, and built it up. And I think we've seen something like 12,000 patients come through there now, and in 12 years or 11 years. So been a great journey, great experience. I in retrospect would have probably done it very similarly. Like I know that financially, the sooner I got into ownership, the better. But just like I felt like I needed to get some of that associateship experience under my belt, um, just to have all that various inputs as far as how management should work, how pricing should work, sales, marketing, all that stuff. I wouldn't have known any of that. And obviously this was like all pre-AI and stuff where you could just go ask something like it, the ability to learn and understand that stuff was a lot lower. So getting the firsthand in-office version of that and being able to take that with me and plug it into where I was going was crucial.
I actually think you did it right. Three or so years as an associate, learning, getting your clinical skills up, learning, different types of practicing and different,
Yep.
management styles, and then opening up your own and molding it into your own thing. I associated for way too long. It was 10 years. So I, looking back, wish I had done it more kind of like you. So I think you nailed it. Um,
Oh, cool.
and then I also like, this can be I don't know, controversial subject, or it's definitely a hot button subject, but the daily minimum thing. Um,
Hmm.
I agree. As an owner, like I get it. Associates, they want to come out, they want to make money. Um, but when I first got out of school, I was a hot mess, and it would take me 3 hours to do a crown prep. And I never, back then there was never an option for a daily minimum. Um, but when I've had associates come to me, I always tell them, look, the goal, I'm bringing you in here because the goal is we want to keep you busy and productive. Um,
Hmm.
but if it's going to take you 3 hours to do a crown prep, that's going to be very difficult, to reach that minimum. So I agree. I compare the first, couple years of real world dentistry, like the minor leagues of baseball. Like you're going to suck. You're not going to be good. You're going to be slow. You're going to hate crown preps because you're not going to be good at them.
Yep.
Um, it takes time to get better.
Yeah, and I guess that's kind of the part of the story that kind of goes unsaid with like the associateship, like part of our journeys is the unfortunate truth is you come out of school knowing just enough dentistry to be dangerous, and you're going to learn it on the fly. And unfortunately, it means learning it on real people who, live in whatever community you're working in. And not that anybody's trying to do poor work or low quality work, but like you said, like you've had this environment where I don't know, you've gotten to do 10 crowns and 3 years of clinical, whatever it is. And so, and you've got 3 hours to do it and you got somebody over your shoulder and everything is slow. And all of a sudden, you got a schedule and you got two or three columns and you're trying to zipper back and forth. Um, and just the reality is you are going to require some reps to get in the skill and the speed that you need to be able to actually feel good about what you're doing. And it took me, yeah, a good 12 to 18 months to really feel like, okay, I know what a crown prep's supposed to look like. I can get all the way around like the distolingual margin and not have a lip on that side. And, I'm not cutting into the neighbor tooth and, all that kind of stuff. Like you're just always worried. You're always slow. You're going to have some hiccups with, you know, deep margins and things you just never really get experience with that you gotta navigate and you gotta be able to handle. And if you jumped right into doing that on your own, like you don't have like the stepwise process from dental school to solo ownership. It's nice to have a little stop in between, I think, to have another doctor on site, maybe a senior doctor to, mentor is a cliche word, but like be there for advice or a backup or bail you out or whatever. So it was nice to have that for a couple years until you really felt like, okay, I could do all of this on my own. I've gotten fast enough, I've gotten good enough. I'm happy to like not only put my name on it, like legally, medico legally, but like put my reputation on it, build a brand, all that stuff. And so, yeah, I appreciate that I had those couple years to be able to transition from dental school dentistry to like real world dentistry and kind of do that in a more controlled environment than like winging it on my own. Because I don't know that that would have gone very well.
Yeah, and I love all that. You really explained that really well, and I think that's going to be, these topics we're talking about are going to be very valuable for the young dentists out there. But you mentioned the words plugged in and keeping a good pulse on the practice. I just want to transition now from, you're a dentist, but also an entrepreneur, and you've created some softwares. Um,
Mhm.
can you tell me about your journey there, and what softwares you've created and why you created them?
Yeah, so the story is similar twice. One is currently at its infancy stages, and the other one is relatively complete. So I'll start with the first one, which is Modento. Um, it kind of originated from and so I was a co-founder of Modento with a few others. And it originated from a place of trying to solve my own problems. And so that's where both of these companies come from. I saw problems in my practice and how I was doing business that I wanted solved by software that would help make my life or my team's life easier. And I looked around back in 2017 or so, a couple years out of school, just doing my startup, looking for solutions for communication and forms and consents and all sorts of different things. And there were various kind of legacy products that, similar to the story I'll tell about my current company, like I feel like they're kind of stagnant or stuck in time from whenever they got developed, and they weren't really keeping up with stylistically what people are looking for or functionally what people are looking for. And so I ended up partnering with a couple of developers to build Modento. And we went from nothing to a couple thousand dental offices in about 2.5 years, 2018 to 2021. Didn't really have a defined, like, here's what we're going to do to exit, or here's where this ends for us. But got approached by Dental Intel, obviously a major company in dentistry. And they had, I think, relatively recently acquired Local Med as well. So they're kind of starting to fold in modules or pieces that they don't have, whether it was for the functionality or the integrations or the user base or all the above. I'm not 100% sure, but they had, within the last 12 or 18 months bought LocalMed. And so they came to us and wanted to buy us. And we were basically at an inflection point of like, do we keep growing? Do we become a big, big fish? Or do we allow ourselves to get swallowed by a big fish while we're still small enough to be swallowed? And we elected to do the latter. And so we sold to Dental Intel. It was called Modento for a long time. I think they recently just rebranded it to Engagement by Dental Intelligence, but legacy people know it as Modento. So anyway, that was story one, version one. And obviously a huge part of my journey was building and selling that company. I did podcasts and stuff like this around that. Got the word out there, was willing to chat with and be kind of the dentist filter for the company, as kind of the dentist co-founder. And then now currently Airo Dental is my latest company. And this is 100% me. So very different from Modento in that way. I didn't partner with anybody. Hired people to help me this time instead of partnering with people. And it's in the name AI. It's kind of the buzzword. It's kind of the thing going on over the last few years. And so it's just basically an updated, modernized version with some additional functionality, kind of what I was saying before with like being a little stagnant, being a little less aware of what's going on in the market, what people are looking for or asking for. And so originally Aero Dental was going to or I guess currently it's still going to have multiple pieces to it. But originally, I was going to digitize kind of my teaching. I'm a coach for a mastermind group and do a couple hundred phone calls a year around that. And so I document all those, and I was going to digitize myself and create a platform around that. But then I saw this kind of this space race around AI schedulers, AI voice receptionists, and all that, and did a pretty quick pivot and turned that into kind of module number one. We've given them all kind of a quirky AI twist on a name. So Lane, Laine, is our AI voice scheduler. So Lane Voice is the receptionist, but you can name Lane whatever you want. In my practice, Lane is Kelly. It can be male or female and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, it's Airo Dental is new as of 2026. It's scheduling live in my practice. It answers every single new patient phone call. We're scheduling more new patients than ever. Um, yeah, so I'd love to answer whatever questions you have around that. We talked a little bit offline about how we've evolved, what that does for me, and how it does it. But yeah, it's currently taking every single scheduling phone call and absolutely every new patient phone call in my practice.
Yeah, I looked at our numbers, and we were coming in at 80% of phone calls answered. So
Okay, that's high.
yeah, but still
Yeah,
that's, 1 in 5 calls are not getting answered in my practice, and that's a big deal. Can you imagine,
yeah.
you probably have better data and know, what the going rate is there, but some practices are maybe at 50% or 60% of calls answered. Those are all
Yeah.
potential new patients or patients that want to schedule treatment. And if the phone's just not being answered because either you're at lunch or you don't have enough staff, or your staff's already on the phone, or it's over the weekend,
Mhm.
and that's just opportunity gone.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, 80% is really good, to be honest. You guys are doing a good job. The national average is about 65% of phone calls answered. So yeah, there's got to be some that are closer to 50 and some that are closer to 80. And you guys are obviously on the high end. I would honestly be surprised if there's many higher than 80. Just like you said, human nature. We're already checking somebody out, checking somebody in, presenting treatment in the bathroom on the phone. They called at 5:07 p.m. and you're out the door. Like all of that's real. All that happens in every practice, and nobody's intentionally doing a bad job. It's just, the nature of having to wear 1,000 hats and having all the plates spinning and trying to prioritize what's important. And, the phone call is um, relatively inconsequential as far as what the team member feels, as far as like, if I got somebody sitting in front of me, I can't push them to the side. I've got to finish with them. The phone can ring and stop ringing, and who even knows that it happened? So, like I said, nobody's trying to do a bad job, but they have to kind of prioritize importance of what's going on. And then similarly, uh, but differently, the close rate, if you will, of when that call gets answered and they've indicated that they want to schedule, it's still only about 50% of those get scheduled. So you're answering two-thirds of the calls, and then of those two-thirds, only 50% that said they wanted to schedule end up on your schedule. And again, it's nobody's doing a bad job. The person asks a question about MetLife, like, do you take my insurance? And they say yes, and there's no follow up. There's no steering them towards the appointment. They're just a question answerer, or they're just trying to be helpful, or they answer the phone and immediately put them on hold for 2 minutes and they hang up. And so there's things that happen that nobody's, again, trying to not do their job well. They just don't realize some of the shortcomings of what adds friction to that environment, and they end up kind of dropping the ball a little bit. So, um, fortunately, my AI in particular, answers 100% of the calls. It cannot miss a call. It can answer 20 plus in a row while it's already on the phone, and same smiley voice, same context, same scheduling rules. Like it's not your A player, then your B player, then your C player in a row. Like it's all A player in a row. And it's roughly, we're kind of tweaking how we calculate this, but about 80% successful when they indicate booking. Occasionally there'll be a glitch with the connection, or they don't love all the appointment options, even though they've been offered 7 different things. They wanted something, yesterday, and you don't have it. So about 80% successful. So if you do the math on that, it's over 2 times as effective as your people. um, kind of apples to apples. That said, I think it's important to note that like I'm not here to replace a human, a well-trained, um, loyal human who has all the context around who works there and how long you've been there and where I can squeeze somebody in that the schedule doesn't really allow for. Like that's invaluable. The AI is very black and white. If you create rules or tell it scheduling preferences, it doesn't understand that, this one's actually going to run a little short and I can fit them in there, or, they're less likely to show up. And so I'm going to kind of double book knowing that only one of these two is going to make it. It's not going to do any of that stuff. So, and it also can't, at least currently, do multiple tasks. Like it's really good at scheduling, but if you wanted to also ask a question about your bill or, 4 appointments ago, like remind me the procedures I had done. Like it's not that good at all that stuff yet. It's really good at being singularly focused on scheduling. Um, so, I mean, we've built in some kind of uh, backups as far as like taking a good message and forwarding it to the right team member via email and our kind of dashboard and stuff. So like they don't get missed if somebody called or asked other questions. It's not just lost into the void. But as far as like what it does really well, it's scheduling. And so it's great for backup. It's great for nights and weekends. It's great for whatever you want. And if you're like me and you want to be a petri dish, it can answer everything if you'd like it to. And it does a really good job. So, for better or for worse, my office is the guinea pig, and we've kind of proven the success there. And so I'm, confident that it could do that for anybody else as well.
Yeah, and there's also the staff turnover. If you have someone that's just crushing on the phones, but they leave, and then you
Yep.
got to train someone new,
Yeah.
with your software, it's that AI is still working for you. It's not leaving. It's doesn't get tired. It's not quitting.
Yeah. Doesn't ever ask for a raise, doesn't get sick, doesn't have a bad day, doesn't oversleep, all that stuff. It doesn't bring its own kind of personal problems to work. Like, like I said, we're humans and that comes with good and bad stuff. Like we can hold a lot of context, we can do multiple tasks, but we also like have feelings and don't feel well. As you can hear, I'm kind of battling a sinus infection myself today. And fortunately, I feel fine, but like I sound kind of nasally. But yeah, I mean that's just kind of is what it is. Like the AI, you train it once, it'll do that really well consistently. Like an employee, you should audit it occasionally. You should update it when you got new procedure types or new providers. Like it's not going to just know what's going on in your office, but um, once you get it where you want it to go, it should be off to the races and it should be consistent and delivering, the same quality over and over again. So yeah, you're right. Like that is a plus for sure.
And then the multitasking, personally, I think it's so important for the people at the front, that are checking patients in, checking patients out, to be focused on those patients that are in the office, whether that's going over a treatment plan or getting them scheduled. But
Mhm.
when the phone is ringing, and that is just very distracting for them. And
Yeah,
then, if the patient sees that the phone is just ringing and not getting picked up after, three or four or five rings, that's not a good look either.
correct. Yeah, I mean, we dealt with that a little bit when we're trying to kind of evolve our process. And a lot of offices say, like, I just want to use it for overflow or nights and weekends. And so, the way it actually works currently is it's basically you assign our agent a phone number, like they're a virtual employee of your office. And so at some point in your phone tree, it just forwards or externally transfers to your lane, to your AI agent, and it picks up the phone. It doesn't care or know if it's first in line or last in line, if it's already rang 15 times at the office. Like it just answers the phone, does its job. But as we were kind of testing it, as we were kind of evolving, we also did the overflow thing, which meant that we gave the office kind of first crack at it. Um, and so it would ring 3 times at the office, and then the AI would pick up immediately right after. And as you kind of alluded to, um, yes, it does give your people the first opportunity, but it also literally rings 3 times. And so if they're doing what you've asked them to do, which is, hey, focus on what's in front of you, focus on this treatment plan or checking somebody in, that person is either acutely or at least kind of a little bit aware that that's what happens when I call the office. Like that phone is going to ring 3 times and then they're not going to answer it. And so what we've done is actually redone the phone tree a little bit where you kind of self-select that you're calling to schedule something that Lane can schedule. It's a new patient visit, a exam or consultation, or a healthy 6-month cleaning is how we worded it. And when you push one or whatever the button is for that, that's when Lane picks up. And if you're calling about your account or your EOB or your balance or anything like that, press two, and then a person will pick up, and or it'll ring couple times and go to voicemail, but the majority of scheduling things are going to the AI. And if somebody button mashes or gets tired of going to voicemail and they get to the AI and it's the wrong thing, like an EOB or a vendor or whatever, it'll still take a really great message. You give us rules on like who needs to know what, like what roles are in your office, whether it's a biller or a vendor manager or whatever, and they will get a notification that they've got a follow-up task to deal with. But yeah, that way it doesn't ring at the office anymore when it's a scheduling call. The AI just picks it up, and now there's no longer this awkward like, I know you're not picking that up when I call, because it never rings in the first place. So that's kind of where we've landed right now.
Yeah, and there's also that distraction. I know when our staff is working with a patient in front of them, that phone's ringing, and it is
Yeah.
extremely distracting because they're thinking, like, hopefully someone picks up that phone, hopefully someone picks up that phone. Um,
Well,
you know what?
and kind of like, if you don't kind of dissect that call and make it go certain places for certain things, you literally don't know what's on the other end of that call. And so not answering it could be as simple as like, I'm just confirming my appointment when they could have just texted back to confirm it. Or it could be like, I'm here to say yes to the $10,000 treatment plan you sold me yesterday. And it could be anything in between. And so if you don't know what's potentially on the other end of that phone call, you also kind of have stress built up around, what am I missing? What am I foregoing here to continue this conversation with the person in front of me? Where now we know that the phone that's ringing is an established patient. It should be an established patient asking a question that isn't time sensitive. So it's about their bill. It's about an upcoming appointment. It's about something that, like, yes, we want to answer it if they can, but like if we let it ring and go to voicemail, like we haven't lost an opportunity most likely. So that is kind of nice too. And I can't say that that was 100% the intention. Like that's kind of a nice side effect, but like that being the result of kind of teasing out what goes where and who answers the phone or where it rings or doesn't ring, is taking a huge load off of my team's shoulders where they're not stressed about, is the doc going to wonder why I didn't pick up that phone about yesterday's treatment or whatever. So yeah, that's been a plus as well.
Awesome, man. I just want to change the subject a bit to, we talked a little bit
Yeah.
earlier about this, about investing and money
Yeah.
management.
Yeah.
Well, this could be a very long conversation. It could probably be its podcast on its own, but
Yeah.
um, for the listeners out there, what advice would you have or how have you been successful with managing your money and investing?
So I'll say, unfortunately, the reality is that people are going to hear this and they still have to kind of learn from their own mistakes, just like I did. But I'll try to save somebody somewhere out there some brain damage here. Um, and that is that, it's kind of our nature to micromanage, to feel like we're an expert. And so because we're an expert in one thing, we should be an expert in a lot of things or all things sometimes. And the reality is like you either don't have the mental capacity or the time capacity to really micromanage and granularly manage every aspect of your life. And so I've kind of come full circle with investing. I was a huge boglehead, put it on autopilot, get diversified. And then as I got more and more successful in practice and dental practice, was looking for, what I thought were smart ways to offset taxes and have deductions and do all this other stuff. But it unfortunately requires, typically private investments, and they're not inherently bad per se, but they're very concentrated, whether it's, the risk with a particular, you know an offering, like the investment itself or the operator or the region that you're in. If you're investing in single family homes in Indiana, like if a tornado comes through Indiana, like it affects your stuff. Or if that person that's running that fund ends up not being a good person, you're concentrated there. So I've kind of come full circle where, and we could talk a little bit about this before we hit record, like how I am with credit cards is I just don't have the capacity to play the credit card point game where people love to transfer from miles to hotel points and, maximize everything there. I just want whatever I can get, 2% cash back, 1.5% cash back. I just want it to be easy. I want it to be simple. I know I'm technically leaving something on the table there. And in the same way, maybe that's true now with investing, but I've kind of come full circle and I'm basically Vanguard ETFs or Fidelity ETFs with low rates and auto diversification within total stock market or total US market and just make it easy, be smart. There's a lot of people that realize dentists are good at one thing. And unfortunately for what I'm talking about here, that one thing generates a lot of money. And so if we're not intelligent or disciplined enough, that money leaves your hands and it sometimes never comes back. So without being more particular than that, just be mindful. Know that people are, see dentists as opportunity. Usually that's good in the sense of we have disposable income and we can make smart decisions, but sometimes we kind of think we know more than we do, or we think we're being smarter than we are. We think we stumbled upon some new trick or whatever. And unfortunately, there are no shortcuts. There are no tricks. Pay your taxes. That stuff usually comes back to you at some point. So just be mindful and be smart and be disciplined and put some things on autopilot so you can focus on the things that you really can affect. And for me, that's, been dentistry and things that are really connected to dentistry, and investing in oil and gas or single family homes hasn't been as fruitful as I was led to believe it would be. And so I've kind of come back to just making it simple.
Man, that is great advice. This was a great episode. Deren, last question is, how do we find out more about what you're up to?
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, I'm all over Facebook. I even got a little bit guilted by Howard Ferran a little bit ago to get back on Dental Town, so I'm commenting and posting there. I'm on either of those places. You can email me. You can obviously look up my company and contact us there at airodental.com, or email me at Deren@airodental.com. It's DEREN at AIRO dental.com. Happy to field questions. Like I said, I've learned a lot of lessons. I can help people shortcut, whether it's associateship or negotiating a contract or looking at space or talking about software, like however I can help some young dentist or even some old dentist. I'm happy to be an ear and a potential source of an additional opinion. So feel free to reach out any of those ways.
All right. Great stuff. Deren Flesher, thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah. Thanks, Eric. Appreciate it.
Thank you for tuning in to the Stress Free Dentist podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with another dental professional that could use a little less stress in their life. And head over to thestressfreedentist.com to check out my books, resources, and upcoming events, all designed to help you find more balance and joy in your dental career. And remember, you're not alone in this journey.